Nothing shall make me go back to her." Chebron looked perplexed. "Here come Jethro and Amuba, dear. You had best talk it over with them. I see nothing else for you to do." As Jethro came up Mysa walked to meet him. "I will not go back to my mother, Jethro," she exclaimed impetuously. "She wanted me to marry Plexo. She would give me to someone else, and my father always said I should only marry someone I liked. You can never be so cruel as to give me up to her." "I know that your father's wishes were strong upon that point," Jethro said, "for he spoke to me of you when he gave me his commands respecting Chebron. He said that he wished that I could watch over you as over him, and it was because of what he had said that I disregarded his orders as to our instant flight, and lingered here in hopes of freeing you. Still I see not anything else to be done. Your mother doubtless wrote while still overpowered by grief at your father's loss, and thought that she was acting for your welfare in securing you an advantageous marriage in spite of the cloud under which your family was resting." "I will not go to her," Mysa repeated. "She thought of herself, as she always did, and not of me in any way. You know it was so, Chebron. You cannot deny it." Chebron was silent. His whole affection had been given to his father, for his mother he had comparatively little. As a child he had seldom been allowed to come into the room where she was. She declared that his noise was too much for her, that his talk made her head ache, and that his fidgeting about was too much to be borne. Nor since that time had he been much more with her. It was his father who had seen to his welfare and that of Mysa, who would put aside his grave studies to walk and talk with them, who was always indulgent, always anxious to give them pleasure. He therefore thoroughly entered into Mysa's feelings, but saw no possible alternative for her. "But where could you go, Mysa?" Jethro asked. "Where could you be placed? Wherever you were your mother in time would be sure to hear of it and would reclaim you." "I shall go with Chebron and you and Amuba," Mysa said positively. "Impossible," Jethro replied. "We are going upon a tremendous journey, full of danger and fatigue. We are going among unknown and savage peoples. The chances are 100 to 1 against our ever arriving at the end of our journey. If this is so to myself and to young men like Chebron and Amuba, for they are now past 18, and will speedily be men, what chance would there be of success with you with us?" "I can walk as well as Chebron," Mysa said. "You know that, Chebron, and I suppose I could suffer hardship just as well. At any rate I would rather suffer anything and be with him and all of you than stop here. The people have murdered my father. My mother would sell me to the highest bidder. If the chances are so great that you will never get through your journey in safety, my being with you cannot make them so much greater. I have only Chebron in the world, and I will go where he goes and die where he dies. The gods can protect me just as well on a journey as here. Have they not protected you now, and Chebron too, by what he says? You will take me with you, dear Jethro, won't you?" she urged pleadingly. "You say my father wished you to watch over me. Do not forsake me now. Ruth will come with us too. Will you not, Ruth? I am sure she will not be more afraid of the journey than I am." "I will assuredly go if you go, Mysa. The God of Israel can take us safely through all dangers if it be his will." Jethro was silent. Such an addition to his charge would assuredly add immensely to the difficulties of the journey, but on the other hand he remembered the anxiety of Ameres about Mysa, and he asked himself what his late master would have wished had he known how matters stood. He glanced at Amuba and Chebron and saw at once that their wishes agreed with those of Mysa. He turned away abruptly, and for some minutes paced up and down the garden. Then he returned to the group, among whom not a word had been exchanged since he left them. "Mysa," he said gravely, "this is a great thing that you ask. There is no disguising that your presence will add greatly to our difficulties, will add also to our perils, and may render it impossible for me to carry out your father's wishes and to conduct Chebron to a land where he will be beyond the persecution of Egypt. Such an enterprise must be undertaken in no light spirit. If you go you must be prepared to face death in all forms, by hunger and thirst and the weapons of the wild natives. It may even be that your lot may be that of slavery among them. It is a terrible journey for men, more terrible still for women. Still, if you are resolved with the strength and mind of a woman and not of a child, that after having once turned your back upon Egypt you will never repent the step you have taken or wish to return, but will be steadfast under all the trials that may befall us, then I say that you shall share our lot." Mysa uttered an exclamation of joy. "I promise, Jethro; and whatever may happen, hardship, danger, or death, you shall never hear a word of complaint from me. Are you not glad, Ruth?" "I think it well," Ruth said gravely. "It is a great undertaking, but I think that God's hand is in it. I, too, would fain leave this land of idols, and except those here I have none in the world to care for." "And now, Jethro," Amuba said, "what had we best do? It is already almost dark, therefore we could set out at once. Could we make use of the chariot?" Jethro considered for a short time. "Except for carrying any things we may want for our first start, I do not see that we can do so," he said; "for where we leave the chariot tomorrow morning it would be found, and when it is known that Ptylus' chariot was missing it would soon be recognized as his, and thus a clue afforded to the fact that we had fled south. As to traveling in it beyond tonight, it would be out of the question. Besides, it will only hold 3 at the most. No, if we use it at all it must be to drive north, and so throw them off the scent. I think it will be worth doing that." "I will undertake that part of the business," Amuba said. "There will be much for you to do tomorrow, Jethro, which only you can arrange. There's the boat to be hired, stores laid in, and all got in readiness. I think the best plan will be for you both to start at once with the girls for Thebes. You and Chebron can occupy your hiding place on the hill, and Chigron will be glad to take the girls into his house. There is no danger of an immediate search being made for them. Tonight, when the priest and his son do not return, their servants will suppose that they have slept here. It will not be until late tomorrow afternoon that there will be any alarm or any likelihood of a messenger being sent over here. Then the consternation and confusion that will be caused will be so great that probably no one will think of carrying the news to the officials until the next morning. Besides, until the story of Mysa's having been here and of her being missing is generally known, there is no reason that what has taken place should be attributed to us. Therefore, for the next 48 hours, I think that they would be perfectly safe at the embalmers. I will drive the chariot 30 or 40 miles north, then turn the horses loose where they are sure to be noticed ere long, and will return on foot and join you in your hiding place tomorrow night."
"I think your plan is a very good one, Amuba. Before we start I will make a search through the house. There will be nothing we want to take with us, nor would we want to touch any of the treasure of the villains were the house full of it, but if I toss some of the things about it will look as if robbery had been the motive of what has taken place. The men in bonds can know nothing of the real state of things. Plexo, when he rushed out for their aid, could have had no time to do more than to tell them to take up their arms and follow him. Indeed, it is doubtful whether he himself had any idea that we were aught but what we seemed. Therefore, the first impression assuredly will be that we were malefactors of the worst kind. Escaped slaves, men with no respect for the gods, for assuredly no Egyptians, even the worst of criminals, would in cold blood have laid hands on the high priest of Osiris."
"They laid hands on my father," Chebron said bitterly.
"Yes, but not in cold blood. Reports had first been spread among them that he was untrue to the gods, and then they were maddened by fanaticism and horror at the death of that sacred cat. But in cold blood, as I said, no Egyptian, however vile and criminal, would lift his hand against a priest. You may as well come with me, Amuba. It would be strange if one of us only took part in the search."
In 10 minutes Jethro and Amuba had turned the place into confusion in forcing open chests and cabinets, and littering the floor with garments. Then taking a few of the most valuable vases and jewels, they threw them into the pond round the fountain, where they would be concealed from view by the water lilies which floated on its surface. They examined afresh the fastenings of the captives, and felt assured that by no possibility could they free themselves. "They will be sure to be freed by tomorrow night," Amuba said. "Otherwise I should not like to leave them here to die of hunger and thirst."
"I should be only too glad," Jethro said, "if I thought there was a chance of their being here 40 hours instead of 20. Doubtless this is not the first evil business they have carried out for their villain master, and they may think themselves lucky indeed that we do not take what would be in every way the safest and best course, namely to run a sword through their bodies and silence them forever. If I thought they could tell anything I would do so now, but I really do not think that anything they can tell would add to our danger. Of course the priest's wife knows that Mysa is hidden here, and will proclaim the fact that she has been here and is now missing, as she would consider it might afford a clue for the apprehension of those who attacked the house and slew her husband and son. Therefore I do not see that there would be much to be gained by silencing these people; but if you think differently I will finish them at once." Amuba shook his head.